Welcome to the 129th season of the Canadian Club Toronto, Canada's podium. For over a century, this stage has united visionaries and leaders from politics, business, community, and the arts to share insights on the most pressing issues of our time. And with Canada in a pivotal moment, it's more important than ever that we come together.
We've been having important discussions and debates around this podium in this country for well over a century. I call this a historic podium of record.
Our club's always been a forum for visionaries, public figures, and decision makers to command attention to the issues of our time.
The Canadian Club is one of the most important podiums anywhere in the world that a Canadian can speak to, tell Canadians what it is that they think, develop those thoughts. And so I want to thank you for that very, very much.
Please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists today.
Through our programs and events, including our youth and young leaders programs, our diversity partnerships, our joint events, and our media and social media opportunities, we offer you access to dynamic political, social, and business figures from abroad and right here at home.
The platform from which the eloquence of Canada has flowed all of that time, whether it be business, education, politics, sports, arts and culture. If someone wants to say something to Canadians about this country and about the future of this country, this is the venue you choose.
Good afternoon, members and guests, and welcome to those joining us online. My name is Shazan Chu, President of Canadian Club Toronto, and your host for today. For more than a century, Canadian Club Toronto has brought together leaders and citizens to engage in thoughtful, informed dialogue about the issues that shape our country. Today's event is a strong reflection of that mission and of the role this podium continues to play in Canada's public life as we discuss the state of Canada's economy and the choices that will define its future. Our ability to convene these important conversations is made possible through the support of our partners and sponsors. Today's event is presented by TD Bank and supported by our event sponsor, Enbridge. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment to advancing dialogue on Canada's economic future. Thank you. To our season sponsors, Canadian Bankers Association and Carpenters Regional Council, and our official airline sponsor, Air Canada, thank you. And thanks to Canada's Forest Trust Corporation, our nature partner who help us reduce our carbon footprint by planting a smart forest in our honor. We're also pleased to welcome students from the University of Toronto's Political Science program joining us today through the support of Simon Dwyer at Bell Canada. Where are you? Right there. And now let me take a moment to remind you of our website and its on-demand content and event information. Please visit canadianclub.org, and while you're there, consider becoming a member if you haven't already done so. And I'm sure you'll have questions about Canada's economic direction and the policy choices ahead. Please use the question cards on your table, and for those online, please use the Submit a Question button, and our team will be looking out for those. And now I'd like to invite the Honourable Rona Ambrose, Deputy Chairwoman, TD Securities, to the stage to formally introduce our special guest today.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you, Chisholm. Hi, everyone. I'm Rona Ambrose, Deputy Chair at TD Securities, and we're really proud to sponsor this lunch today. I know we're all really looking forward to hearing from my friend, the Honourable Pierre Poilievre, Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition and Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Pierre grew up in Alberta, or as I like to call it, the land of the free. As the adopted son of two school teachers, he lives in Ottawa with his incredibly beautiful and talented wife, Anna, and their children, Valentina and Cruz. And if you haven't seen the cuteness about these two, you need to get on his Instagram. As a member of Parliament and minister, he helped our previous Conservative government cut taxes, how novel, balance budgets, very novel, and deliver affordable homes and crack down on crime and corruption. That was a time here in Canada when we truly had a free enterprise government. And ever since then, we have been sadly in an economic decline. As Vice Chair of the Commons Finance Committee, Pierre was the first major voice in Parliament to warn that massive money printing deficits would lead to inflation. And it was actually Mark Carney at the time wrongly predicted that prices would go down. And rarely do opposition leaders set the national policy agenda, but that's what Pierre has done. He has led the charge to scrap the carbon tax. He has fought for tougher laws against dangerous criminals, banning free drugs, and making the case to unlock our resources. And what Pierre has done to grow our party is nothing short of remarkable. In the most recent election, he got more votes than any Conservative leader in our history, the largest share of votes since 1988, adding 2.5 million more votes and 25 more seats than the prior election, all with major gains among young people and working people. And he's just only begun. After Liberals doubled housing costs, inflated food prices, and unleashed crime in our streets, Pierre is fighting back. His purpose is a Canada with strong take-home pay, safe streets, and secure borders in a self-reliant country. When we were serving in cabinet, in government, well, it's probably over a decade ago, I remember Pierre coming to cabinet to do a presentation, and John Baird, the then foreign minister at the time, introduced him by saying, you know, to the Prime Minister, Sir, Prime Minister Poilievre is here to do, Minister Poilievre is here to do a presentation. And we all chuckled, but we sort of knowingly glanced at each other because we all knew that one day he would be a Prime Minister. So yes, so we might have to wait a little bit longer for that to happen, but I have no doubt in his abilities to lead this country. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Canada's next Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the great Rona Ambrose, former minister, businesswoman, former leader of our party, a great Albertan and a wonderful Canadian. And if you have any doubt that she's an Albertan, her husband is a former rodeo rider, and he's right there taking autographs, making autographs afterwards. It's an honor to have you here, Rona, and it brings back memories of a better time, a time when our country was affordable and autonomous, and when we were able to stand our own 2 feet as an economy. In fact, that is really the theme of my speech today. We are here today gathered at a time when we're in need of both optimism and realism. In fact, it has been said that optimism without realism is a fantasy. Realism without optimism is surrender. I ask today that we do both of these things. We bring forward optimism for what our country can be and realism about where we are today. The good news is that Canada should be the richest, most affordable and autonomous country anywhere on earth. Aujourd'hui, je vous demande de regarder la réalité en face. Je vous demande aussi de ne pas accepter silencieusement cette réalité actuelle. Parce que la bonne nouvelle, c'est que le Canada peut et doit devenir le pays le plus riche, le plus abordable et le plus autonome au monde. We have more resources per person than any country in the history of the world. It should be laughably cheap to buy a house, to heat that house, and to drive a car off its lot. Food prices should be so affordable that price is an afterthought when you walk down the grocery aisle with all the farmland we have. Our mission should, therefore, to make Canada affordable and safe at home and unbreakable abroad. That is our potential. Now, let's look at our present-day reality. On electricity, We have the world's third largest supply of uranium, the most rivers to power hydro, the cheapest natural gas anywhere on Earth to power stations. And yet, this year, for the first time ever, Canada is unable to produce enough electricity to supply itself. We have the fourth most oil anywhere on Earth, and yet we are now importing from Saudi Arabia and Nigeria. We have the most oil in the G7, and we are the only G7 country without an oil reserve. We have the most land, but we have 10 times more land per person to live on, and yet we have the fewest homes per capita in the G7. We have the third most farmland per capita in the world, and yet 2.2 million people line up at food banks every month. That is a 100% increase over the last 7 years. And the bad news, I'm afraid, continues. Under Mark Carney, Canada has the highest household debt in the G7, the most unaffordable housing in the G7, the lowest investment per worker in the G7, the worst food price inflation in the G7, the second lowest productivity in the G7, and the second highest unemployment in the G7. An outflow of $500 billion of investment has left our country under the Liberals for the United States. Twice as much investment has left Canada in the last 10 years than has returned, according to an RBC report released just 2 days ago. And twice as many Canadians are opening businesses in the United States as in Canada. Let that sink in. Twice as many Canadians are opening businesses in the United States than in Canada. And we got a solution to this problem at the Liberal Convention. They want to put a $500,000 exit tax on anyone threatening to leave the country. Any country that feels it must punish people for fleeing is not a place of hope and optimism. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business wrote this week that after a year of Mark Carney, quote, more businesses have been closing than opening in Canada. It's time to admit it. We're in an entrepreneurial drought. High costs, red tape, labor challenges, and never-ending uncertainty discouraging the next generation of entrepreneurs stands in the way. More businesses in Canada have closed than opened for 6 consecutive quarters. More than half of small business owners say they would not recommend starting a business right now. In the second quarter of 2025, exit rates reached 5.6%, while entry rates fell to 4.8%. In Q4 2025, marking some of the highest closure rates and weakest startup activity outside of the pandemic. High costs, taxes, payroll pressures, complex rules, and ongoing labor challenges, also against a backdrop of persistent global uncertainty, all make entrepreneurship more difficult and less attractive. Canada's economic foundations, and I'm quoting here, are crumbling. Governments need to stop papering over the cracks and really focus efforts on policies that improve small business environment. We cannot afford to regulate ambition out of our country. When more than half of small business owners are telling us that they wouldn't recommend starting a business, it is time to listen, end quote. Under these numbers are real lives. Canada's happiness ranking on the Global Happiness Index has gone from 5th in the world 10 years ago to 18th last year, and now we have risen to 25th under Mark Carney. What's worse is that among youth, we rank 71st. There are 70 countries in the world where young people are happier than young Canadians. And we're not just behind the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, but we're now behind Kazakhstan, Vietnam, and Moldova. Young people in Kazakhstan are happier than young people in Canada. Something bad is happening here, and it's only getting worse. Now, we can take the comforting tranquilizer of blaming global factors for these problems. But all the other countries that we're falling behind face those same factors. They all face tariffs. They faced COVID, wars in Ukraine and Iran. Why is it that we're doing so much worse than all those other countries? Why is it that our economy is crumbling only here under this Liberal government? Now, it's also a comforting illusion to say that these are the problems created by the earlier Liberal government, but that they've learned and changed. That's what Mr. Carney promised in the last election. He promised that he would backtrack on everything he had said and written for 10 years and everything that his party had done in the previous decade. So what has changed? Really? Strip away the adjustments for style, image, ignore the speeches and the promises. What has really changed? If you asked a neutral and objective AI bot to go into all of the policies on the books of the Government of Canada, what would you find has actually changed in the last year? Deficits and spending are both higher, a lot higher. Taxes, they're about the same. Laws passed by Trudeau to block resource development and free criminals, all of them are still on the books. Those are the facts. Everything else is an illusion. Speaking of illusions, let us go through Mr. Carney's words and promises one by one. He promised to spend less and invest more. He's since doubled the deficit. He's increased federal spending by 7% above levels he inherited from Trudeau. Outside of COVID, government spending is, as a share of GDP, higher than it's been since 1996, and the deficit is the biggest in our country's history. He has stacked $90 billion of net new spending above and beyond the spending Trudeau had already budgeted. This is net of promised savings, most of which are not yet realized. And by the way, 2/3 of the new spending is on operations, not the famous capital expenditure we were promised. There's been no tax reform, other than to change the name of the carbon tax to the Clean Fuel Standard. Mark Carney promised to cut red tape and remove barriers. He's not removed a single Trudeau-era anti-development law, but he has stacked new laws on top of old ones. He's not removed a single government department, agency, or crown corporation, but he's created 12 new ones. He solemnly promised that because we are in an existential crisis, we would need to move at speeds not seen in generations at an unimaginable scale. So last June, I instructed our parliamentary team to help him pass in 5 days unprecedented legal powers to fast-track new projects. Get them going immediately. There's no time to waste. How many projects has he approved since June with those new powers? 0. Not one. Not one single new major project, not one oil pipeline, not one port, nothing. And speaking of pipelines, that great symbol of our national sovereignty, after a year of Mark Carney's unprecedented speeds, the proposed pipeline to the Pacific has no permit, no route, no proponent, no timeline to start or to finish. In fact, the only company that could conceivably build it, Enbridge, one of our sponsors today, has said that liberal laws and taxes that Mr. Carney has kept in place make it impossible to produce enough oil to put in that prospective pipeline. And Mr. Carney says he will never approve the pipeline unless Alberta builds a $20 billion carbon capture and storage project, a project that has never been done anywhere in the world and that, based on the most rosy scenarios, will lose money forever after $20 billion of expenditures to build it, if it can ever be built at all. By the way, there's no proponents to build that either. The only thing we're seeing here is an illusion. And the only thing real is the cost. Then there's the famous Davos speech about the need for a middle power alliance. While it had many crowd-pleasing lines in it, the rhetoric was short of details. What has it amounted to in reality? Middle powers. It's been a year. Mr. Carney has not negotiated a single new free trade agreement anywhere in the world in the last year. There have been dozens of unenforceable MOUs that say in the text they have no legal weight, but there has not been a single new trade agreement of any kind. The rhetoric simply doesn't match the results, and illusions are not reality. Lofty summit speeches, meaningless MOUs, symbolic signing ceremonies do not pay your mortgage, gas your tank, or fill your grocery cart here at home. They do not grow the economy, make us unbreakable abroad. So what is really going on here? How can Mark Carney talk such a big game abroad while doing so little to fix the real problems here at home? And why does it feel so much like it's all announcements and statements rather than results? At the most basic level, Mr. Carney is and always has been a big government liberal. He believes in the same top-down government-run economy that concentrates money and power in the hands of a small group of political authorities for the benefit of corporate insiders like him. The theory they have, it's trickle-down economics, is that a group of credentialed central planners can spend your money, take from one industry and give to another, and decide who gets what. It's the same liberal approach that doubled our debt and drove up the cost of living over the last decade. Nothing has changed. And the problem is that when politicians decide who gets what, those with the most power end up getting it all, and everyone else gets the bill. The well-lobbied-for corporate insiders fill their pockets with tens of billions of dollars of projects that go over budget, over schedule, and often belly up. Governments block competitors from taking on political favorites, and they redirect resources from money-making businesses to money-losing businesses. Take the Alto Rail project as the worst example. It's a project whose proponents say it will cost $90 billion to build, $8,000 per family in Canada, after which it will continue losing $1 billion a year forever. All of this, by the way, not to take cars off roads, but to take passengers out of airplanes. So we're going to take people out of a faster money-making mode of transportation to put them in a slower and money-losing mode of transportation. According to McGill University, that project will never make money and will never be able to pay back the original governmental investment. Furthermore, if you look at the real result, it will be that insiders will get the contracts and the lobbying benefits. The project will not even be completed for the next 12 years, during which time Canadians will pay taxes for consultants and insiders to receive more and more. Every time we prop up money-losing projects like this, Canada gets poorer, while a small group of insiders get rich off the grease. And Canada is plunged into a cycle of bad policy to compensate the original bad decision. This is how it works. To pay the cost of a bad investment, the government raises taxes, further slowing economic growth, so it begins printing money. And as money outgrows the stuff it buys, prices rise, inflation grows. Mark Carney not only supports this agenda, he is its global symbol. It's the policy he pursued as a central banker and then as Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. And now that he is Prime Minister, he's doing it all over again. And none of this is to disparage Mr. Carney, who's a perfectly fine gentleman. It's just to point out, and with the greatest respect, that Mr. Carney has been wrong about every major economic issue of the last decade. When he was the head of the Bank of England, he printed money, leaving that country with the worst inflation in the G7 and a housing crisis that deprived an entire generation of youth of home ownership. He wrongly predicted that COVID would cause deflation, that prices would drop, and the result was that he advised governments to print copious amounts of money, giving us the worst inflation in 40 years. And all through 2020, while I was warning that inflation would result from this spending and printing, what did Mr. Carney say? In a December 2020 interview, well after the realities of COVID were very well known, he said, "Do I worry about inflation? Look, in the horizon of a normal central banker, 2 or 3 years, the horizon for monetary policy, it is unlikely to materialize to a serious extent." End quote. 2 years later, on schedule, we had the worst inflation in 40 years. I say this because he's doing the same thing all over again. He also wrongly opposed the Enbridge pipeline to the Pacific. He wrongly argued that in his book that we should keep half of our oil in the ground. He founded the Glasgow Financial Alliance of Net Zero, a global coalition whose stated purpose was to financially starve off the oil and gas sector, which employs hundreds of thousands of people in Canada. That alliance attracted enormous attention and considerable prestige, and then it collapsed. Its members fled, and the alliance dissolved. And sure enough, he was gone before the bill came. He was wrong to enthusiastically support carbon taxes and EV mandates. Then he became Prime Minister, claiming that he had changed his mind on those things before bringing them back under different names. Now, his defenders will call them these decisions and these reversals pragmatism, but in reality, it is an illusion. As the London Telegraph wrote, The years Carney spent running the Bank of England were characterized by stagnant growth, stalled living standards, and declining productivity. While there are many explanations for that, the rock-star governor clearly did nothing to improve the performance of the British economy. By the time he had left office, Carney had created a mess which his successors have struggled to clear up. Inflation spiked to 11% in the UK, compared to 5% in France and 8% in Italy, all because the bank printed far too much money. The gap between Mr. Carney's boasting and his results is perhaps unprecedented. As Daniel Boorstin said, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. And he's doing it all over again here in Canada. What all Mr. Carney's policies have in common is that they drive costs up and wages down for the working class people, and they drive wealth into the hands of a small group of well-connected political elites through subsidies, grants, and other payouts. And here's the point, my friends. After a year of Mark Carney, the economy is poorer, weaker, and more expensive than ever before. Toutes les politiques de Mark Carney ont une chose en commun. Ces politiques font augmenter le coût de la vie et font baisser les salaires de nos travailleurs. Tout ça pendant qu'une certaine élite profite avec le baisse coopératif et les subventions. En même temps, après un an des libéraux, on voit que notre économie était en déclin, le coût de la vie augmente plus rapidement et les gens ne peuvent plus payer leurs factures. His plan in government has been to repeat the same top-down, insider-driven policies of centralizing control. Instead of fixing the many boondoggles left behind by Trudeau, he has compounded and layered on top of them. We in Canada believe that there is a better way. But consider the paradox. Mr. Carney keeps in place laws that block resource development. Then he creates new laws to go around the old laws. He puts in a heavy carbon tax on the steel sector, and then he subsidizes the steel sector. He keeps taxing home building, and then he subsidizes home building with a brand new agency. He keeps high taxes on business and investment, and then he subsidizes business and investment. It might seem like a contradiction. In fact, you might reflect on the words of Ronald Reagan when he said, when a liberal sees something that moves, he taxes it. If it keeps moving, he regulates it. When it stops moving, he subsidizes it. Why not just get out of the way? Ultimately, that would mean no role for the government and the people in power, no need to bow before Caesar, sign another application form, or get in line for approval. What we need is leadership with the humility to get out of the way of government, get out of the way of economic activity and prosperity. And that is the Conservative approach. The answer is clear. We want Canada to be a free market economy, to unleash the genius and work ethic of the common people, to build affordable, abundant lives filled with home ownership, family, nutritious food, a nation that stands on its own 2 feet and bows before no other. To be an affordable, strong country here at home and unbreakable abroad, and at the same time to have both economic autonomy and free enterprise. These are not contradictions. So often we think the only way to become self-reliant is for government to get involved and run things. In reality, if we want to become more abundant and self-reliant, we need to unleash the free enterprise system, which is the greatest system in the history of the world to benefit the material situation of working people. Now, the work has to be concrete, and our approach and our pillars are fourfold. Affordable and abundant energy, low inflation and taxes, free market competition, national self-reliance. On a beaucoup de pain sur la planche. Et le travail qui attend les conservateurs repose sur 4 piliers. Une énergie abordable, des prix et de l'inflation plus bas, et de plus de concurrence dans le libre marché, et finalement, plus d'autonomie. The first of these pillars is affordable energy, which is the key to defeating poverty and powering our economy. Energy is not a luxury. It is the flow-through price of every single thing we buy. It heats our homes, runs our businesses, powers our farms, delivers all of the goods that we bring through the veins of our country that we call highways, railways, and power lines. When it is abundant, it is cheap to buy, and it is affordable for the people. and everything else becomes abundant when energy is abundant. And that is why Conservatives propose to get rid of all taxes on gas, at least for the rest of the year, so that we can make it affordable for people to get to work and we can power the transportation of our goods and services. We also understand that in order to have abundant energy, you ultimately need to have that energy come above the ground. We need to be able to power the farmer who harvests in our fields. We need to be able to power the factories that deliver the goods where we need them to go. And we need, in order for that to happen, we need a change in our entire legal system to make it possible. And so that moves me to the issue of the second pillar, which is strong money. Governments that print money destroy its value. Governments that control their money supply and ensure it only grows at the rate of the output in the country allow it to retain value. Money is simply a technology to move value over space and time. And when we keep inflation low, we reward earnings and savings, and that is the way that you protect and grow the purchasing power of your people. We know how to do it. The Swiss are the model. The Swiss have had almost no inflation for 25 years, including during COVID, where it peaked around 3%. Why? Because they do not print money to spend it. They protect the purchasing power of the franc, which, by the way, is the greatest currency on earth. They did this by avoiding out-of-control deficits and returning quickly to balanced budgets. A future Conservative government will do what we did in the Harper era. We will balance budgets, we will keep spending low, and we will keep our money strong. We will cut back the $26 billion spent on consultants. We will cut back foreign aid, corporate welfare, handouts to false refugees. We'll get rid of the Alto rail projects and similar other projects and bring in a dollar-for-dollar law that requires we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. That brings us to our next pillar, free enterprise. Canada was not built by bureaucrats and politicians in control rooms, pushing buttons, turning knobs, pulling strings to, quote, run the economy. It grew because we freed our farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, investors to make their own decisions. Conservatives will cut corporate welfare, the grants, subsidies, and loan guarantees, and use the savings to lower taxes on all businesses. You will no longer have to fill out an application form in order to be a success in life. Instead, you will reinvest your money here in Canada with no capital gains tax whatsoever. Making it capital gains tax free to reinvest will be a form of economic rocket fuel for our country. We'll take the sales tax off all homes that are sold for under $1.3 million anywhere in Canada, and we will incentivize our municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development charges. We will cut taxes on work, investment, home building, and energy. And we will also ensure that you as businesses do not have to interact with government in order to succeed. The question you have to ask is, do you want an economy based on carve-outs, handouts, and bailouts, or hard work and competition? Do you want business to make money by having the best lobbyist or the best product? Do you want business to profit by having a chance to please politicians or by pleasing customers? Do you want a political marketplace where corporations compete for wealth through power, or a free marketplace where they compete for customers with lower prices and workers with better wages? In short, do we want a political aristocracy or do we want economic meritocracy? I know which one I want. But we also need self-reliance because we cannot rely on the rest of the world in this increasingly difficult and unpredictable time. And that is why I've bundled our policies in this respect into the Canadian Sovereignty Act, designed to repatriate production to our country and make Canada a magnet of economic activity so that we are always able to provide for ourselves. To be clear, we want to bring production to our country that makes us richer, not money-losing projects that constantly need to be propped up. That is the fundamental difference between the current Liberal approach and ours. For example, while I said we don't want the Alto project, we do want LNG projects. These are money makers. We can be selling natural gas for $11 overseas that it costs us $3 to produce here in Canada. That's why the single biggest infrastructure project in Canadian history approved by Mr. Harper, the LNG Canada Northern British Columbia project, required no government subsidy and yet generated $40 billion of investment. We are going to get out of the way and let more of these projects happen. Conservatives will repeal Bill C-69, the anti-development law, remove the ban on shipping, get rid of the industrial carbon tax to bring back production of steel, aluminum, fertilizer, concrete, cement, gas, and oil. Within the first 2 years in government, we will reduce the paper burden of the federal state by 25% and pass a 2-for-1 law requiring that every time a department brings in one new regulation, it will have to get rid of 2 existing ones, all of which will have to be verified by the Auditor General. We'll go from having the second slowest building permits in the OECD to the fastest. We'll approve mines in 6 months, not 18 years. We'll have one project, one approval as a rule, as we did in the Harper era, allowing us to approve with a one-page document 23,500 projects from concept to completion in under 2 years without a single environmental problem. My friends, it can be done if we allow government to get out of the way and allow builders to build. We will aim to approve roughly a dozen wildly profitable LNG projects, and not just will we produce it, we will make sure we have strategic control over it. I will initiate a plan for a strategic energy and mineral reserve, where our energy and our minerals that are necessary for warfare and security will be stored at key locations across our country and kept on reserve for the time when they are most needed. Imagine, for example, if we had 200 million barrels of oil in storage when the prices spiked after the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. We could profit while reducing global prices and increasing our diplomatic leverage around the world. We have 10 of the 12 NATO-defined critical minerals, some of the most important to wage a war. We should be using this, by the way, as leverage with the United States of America. They understand that they need these minerals, and many of which they do not have them. If we had them on reserve and made an agreement to guarantee their supply in the event of a global crisis to those countries that give us tariff-free access, all of a sudden we would have massive power in the forthcoming renewal and negotiations of CUSMA. And that is how we're going to get through these negotiations properly, by building up our leverage and converting it into our objectives, which should be clear: a tariff-free trade agreement with the United States of America, the biggest market anywhere on Earth. We need to end the tariffs. Yes, we do. We need to end the tariffs on steel, aluminum, autos, and lumber. We need a tariff-free pact with the United States on automotive capabilities and supply chains, and we need to do it by limiting Chinese vehicles. We will make it clear to the Americans that if they let our vehicles in, we will keep Chinese vehicles out. We need a full exemption to Buy America so that we can supply the U.S. military and government and state-level administrations as well. And we need to relaunch, even if we have to rename, the Keystone Pipeline to move another 800,000 barrels of oil down to the U.S. Gulf Coast. And we have learned that the Americans, they might have hit us with these tariffs in the past, but they just got a lot worse on April the 2nd. In a whole spate of new tariffs that very few people have even talked about, we've seen the American administration now expand aluminum and steel tariffs to apply to unrelated products that are in similar components. And just today I was on the phone with businesses out of Windsor who are going to be hit by $1 billion in that city alone. The tariffs from the United States are actually getting much worse. There is an urgency for the Prime Minister to finally get moving and deliver the deal that he ran on and promised in the last election. There's no more time to waste, no more jobs we can afford to lose. Finally, we've already seen how Mr. Carney was wrong about every major economic issue of the last decade. But he's wrong again about something else, and perhaps even more dangerous. He's wrong to suggest that we can have a permanent rupture with our biggest customer and closest neighbor in favor of a strategic partnership for a new world order with the regime in Beijing, a regime the Prime Minister said himself a year ago was the biggest threat to Canada. Let's get real. We sell 20 times more to the United States than we sell to China. That ratio might change a little bit. It might moderate. But at a fundamental level, They will always be our biggest customer. We need a tariff-free deal. We need to get these obstacles out of the way. And removing obstacles is really the theme of the speech, unleashing our potential. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said that perfection is not achieved when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to remove. And when we remove the obstacles, burdens, and entanglements of the last 11 years of Liberal government, we will add so much more to our economy. We will liberate the energy and brilliance of our workers, entrepreneurs, inventors, and creators. When they are free to exchange, build, invest, undertake, they will make themselves and all of us richer. There is a Canada that lives in the heart of every man and woman who has ever arrived at the shores with nothing but calloused hands and unbreakable will. A Canada that lives in the memory of every family that cleared a field, dug a well, or built a business from the ground up. Not because someone in Ottawa told them to do it, not because the government paid them to do it, but because they were free to do it. That Canada is not just a memory, it is a promise. Imagine, if you will, a Canada like that, a Canada that is in our reach, a land where young tradesmen and women can afford the homes they build, where a mother can fill her grocery cart without choosing to forego her rent, where a family that has worked and saved can breathe freely, not gasping beneath the weight of tax upon tax upon tax, where an entrepreneur can wake up in the morning with an idea and by nightfall get it off the ground, where our reserves in oil and gas, our forest timber, and veins of mineral wealth flow not into the coffers of foreign governments because we have tied our own hands, but into the prosperity of Canadians and our people because we have unshackled them. There are no limits to our potential, my friends. When Canadians are free to achieve their dreams, we will be a nation that fulfills our destiny. That Canada, affordable, autonomous, and bursting with opportunity, is the Canada that we must build. We must be realistic and optimistic, because while a realist counts the odds, an optimist changes them. Let's do both. Thank you. Thank you, President. Thank you.
Good to see you, Pierre.
Thank you, sir. Are we?
We're
still live.
Thank you so much for being here today, Pierre, at the Canadian Club. It's where leaders do come to speak, so we're so welcome to host you, and where they face some of the most thoughtful, curious, and frankly well-dressed audiences.
Yes, very impressive audience.
Very impressive audience. So we'll get into that, and very good luck scheduling you here today. I mean, it's been a busy week. 3 by-elections, a new majority, and global tensions that you mentioned that continue to rise. So we're going to talk a little about policy and removing obstacles that you mentioned, sure, a little about politics and some of the personal. I'm going to start with some of the personal. Over the last year, you've stepped outside your usual political media circuit and done more long-form interviews, podcasts, international conversations, and conversations where we really got to know you a little bit more. What from those conversations allowed you to say or learn that traditional media didn't?
Well, listen, I think that those formats are much more free-flowing. They ask more open-ended questions and leave time for the answer.
Sure.
And, you know, in some instances, like when I was on the Bartlett show, he asked a lot of personal questions that I really didn't anticipate. We had a brief call with his team beforehand, and they were asking all about our policy agenda and what are the major issues in Canada. So I was sort of cramming all this economic and military data into my brain, expecting that. And then he asked about, you know, my childhood and family life. And so a lot of people say, well, what was your strategy in talking about all these things? Sure. Well, I was asked a question, so I answered it.
He just caught you.
He just asked the questions. And I think those sorts of formats allow people to get to know their leaders better than the compressed sound bites that are unfortunately part of the more traditional media environment.
For sure. I heard that interview, and as many others did, I'm sure. And with Stephen, he really did go beyond the policy into the personal, family, background, upbringing.
Yeah.
What do you think there's something that's still left when you meet people that they assume about you that's not right?
Well, I think people know that I'm a fighter. I don't think they always know what I'm fighting for and why I'm fighting for it. And I think it is related to my upbringing. I was very blessed to live in this country where you can get a great opportunity no matter where you start. And that fundamentally motivates me in everything I do. So sometimes the political pugnacity that you see is a reflection of that I'm frustrated that opportunity's been taken away from other people. So, you know, you have to be known for fighting against something, but also for something. Mm-hmm. And what I'm really fighting for is to make it possible for anybody to do a version of what I was able to do, which is to pursue their dreams and achieve it here in Canada. And that's the country that I want to restore.
So it's about that motivation.
That's why I do it. And I think the why is the most important question that you should ask. Is not, you know, the what and the how are also necessary, but you have to ask, what is your purpose in all of that? And that is my purpose.
Moving just onto policy, conscious of time, thinking about perception and reality and some of the comments that you made, as you look at the numbers and statistics on Canada, it's actually quite troubling right now. Per capita GDP, as we all know, has been declining for a decade. There's a big gap now with the United States, our closest neighbor and ally. Our productivity is only 75% of the United States, and importantly, these trends predate recent global tensions and certainly U.S. tensions, as we know it with Trump. It's so troubling, especially as a young family, to think about where Canada goes from here. So what went wrong and what has to change to turn it around?
Well, we have one thing standing in the way, and it's the government. I know that we like to complicate things, but we can look at all these external factors, but why are these factors impacting us more than everyone else? It doesn't make sense that we have the most expensive housing in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. All those other countries have to contend with tariffs and foreign wars. It doesn't make sense that we have the worst investment levels in the G7. All the other G7 countries are contending with the same global factors. So it might be, as I said in my speech, a comforting tranquilizer to say that there's some faraway cause of the problems caused here at home. But that won't fix it. And frankly, in the last year, Mr. Carney has compounded every single one of these problems. The government is bigger. It is spending far more money. Mr. Carney doesn't look like someone who would spend more than Justin Trudeau, but he is. He's spending vastly more than Trudeau. His government is much bigger and more intrusive. He's got more bureaucracy than he inherited, and he continues to block the essential industries of our country. So if we can get the government off the back and out of the way, we can unleash the potential of the Canadian people. The good news is we know what to do. Mm-hmm. The blueprint is there. We just have to do it.
Gotcha. How aware do you think Canadians are of the challenge? I mean, you're out meeting with people every day.
Well, they're living it.
Right.
I think that some people have been hit harder than others, but no matter where you go, young people can't afford a place to live. Increasingly, seniors are forced to choose between heating their homes and paying their rent. We see now so many people who have to go to food banks because they can't afford their incredible cost of food. And folks tell me that every day. And the good news is that we can restore affordability to this country. That's got to be our single most practical priority. Make this a country where people can afford to live and have good lives again.
After Monday, the government now has a clear majority and control of its agenda. What excuses are gone now, and what should Canadians expect to actually see delivered in the next year?
Well, I would argue they never really had any excuses for the last year. I think I saw a headline, Mr. Carney said, "It's time to get serious."
Yeah.
I mean, what has he been doing for the last year?
Right.
Has he not been serious for the last year? I mean, I thought we were in a very serious time all along. Parliament has given incredible grace to this government. As I said at the outset, we helped Mr. Carney pass a law speeding up projects in 5 days.
Yeah.
He had no problem passing his budget, his crime bills. We've been trying to push his, albeit watered down, insufficient crime bills to move faster. So he's the only thing standing in his own way. And now he doesn't even have a rhetorical excuse. And it's going to be time for him to produce. You know, Mr. Carney's been in power now a year. When will groceries be affordable?
Right.
When will the pipeline be under construction? When will that famous deal with the United States actually happen? By the way, I understand there haven't been negotiations in 5 months. What's happening there? I think it's going to be time for him to deliver on all the very lofty promises he made in the last election, and we'll be there to hold him account on all of those things.
It's good to hear. The government now is using a lot of language and ideas you've used for years. Affordability, competitiveness, getting things built. I haven't read an article this morning that was previewing your speech here today, asking who was going to be in the room from the Prime Minister's office to lift a few of your great ideas so that they can next be introduced. So is that a validation of your agenda, or where does it go from here? Because you do generate a ton of great ideas. It's shaping the national discussion as it was introduced, as Rona said, but where does it go from here?
Well, I'd love to say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, but unfortunately it's only imitation in words. In reality, he has not implemented any of the ideas that I ran on. Even the things that you might think he has. He didn't get rid of the carbon tax. He brought in a newly named tax. It's a little lower right now, but it will rise to the previous same level, and it applies more broadly. That's the so-called clean fuel standard. He hasn't got rid of the anti-development laws. They introduced some crime laws. They haven't passed any of them.
Right.
They're sitting in the Senate. I said we needed to have balanced budgets and low spending. Spending has gone up quite dramatically. So I agree that Mr. Carney has used a lot of my words, and I thank him for that. I think I thanked him in person for it. But I would like to actually see them implemented. Then I would be very flattered.
Well, we'll have to see, I guess, a year from now. I think he did promise more substance, less showboating, I think was the Prime Minister's language. So I guess in 12 months we'll invite you back and you can let us know.
So I guess the last 12 months has been about showboating then.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Okay.
Let's finish with a quick lightning round, conscious of time, getting
Sure.
everyone back to the office. Early morning or late night?
I'm more of a late night guy.
Double-double or double espresso?
Double espresso.
More stressful question
Actually,
period?
no, quadruple espresso.
Quadruple.
So, all right.
Keeps the energy
Is that an
going.
option? Yeah, I've got 2 kids.
Right.
So.
More stressful question
By
period
the
or
way,
Toronto traffic?
our son is actually making us coffee in the morning now. What an
That's great.
incredible
It's like a
kid.
little butler.
Incredible kid, yeah. Well, most days I'm his butler, but he's
Right.
doing that. Sorry.
Need to have more.
Yeah, that's right.
More stressful question period or Toronto traffic?
Well, obviously Toronto traffic. Question period is fun.
Most overused word in Ottawa right now?
Oh, my goodness. You want to give me some hints from the crowd here?
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented. That will catalyze an unprecedented. Who's voting for catalyze? Who's voting for unprecedented? All right, we'll go with unprecedented.
One word for Canada's economy today?
Can I have a combined adjective, hyphenated?
Yeah.
Below potential.
Okay, and what it should be?
It should be the most affordable in the world.
And Leafs next year, yes or no?
That's an easy one. I think you know the answer to that.
All the Leafs fans here. So, well, look, I know we're tight on time. Thank you, Pierre. That was great. I think we got more direct answers in this 10 minutes or so than maybe years at question period. So, Pierre, thank you for that.
Or we can fix that. We just needed someone new answering the question.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you.
And Pierre.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And
appreciate it.
On behalf of the Canadian Club, thank you to TD and to Enbridge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Great. Well done.